Do you enjoy doing this kind of thing where you break things down and give your perspective on things and try to illuminate certain complex subjects?
I'm not trying to illuminate so much as, talking to you, I learn as much as I say, and I learn it from myself because I'm being forced to articulate it, right? I can sit around and think my thoughts all day long, but a lot of it's going to be nonsense. It's not, I'm going to, because there are gaps in thinking where you make leaps because you're kind to yourself that you don't realize you're making. But when you're forced to write it down, and this is why I tweet, or when you have to talk to somebody, you have to complete those gaps and make it a proper logical chain. And the mistake that I made when I was young was, I always wanted to seem like the smartest kid in the room. Just like you probably want to seem like the funniest kid in the room or the toughest kid in the room, right? We're all losers starting out. We want to be winners. So we pick the thing we're good at and we double down on it. So I always wanted to be the smartest kid in the room. So what did I do? I read a lot of books. I memorized a lot of things. And then whatever I hadn't memorized, this is pre-Google, I made it up. So it sounded good. Okay. Pre-Google. After Google fact-checking started, and then I had to get better, right? So Google improved me that way.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Exactly. So now what I realize is that the biggest mistake was memorization, right? Because when you're actually trying to live your life in congruence with reality, you want to have a deep understanding of what you do and why you do it. And so it's much more important to know the basics really well than is to know the advanced. Knowing calculus wouldn't help you today. It doesn't help you in business, doesn't help you in most things. But knowing arithmetic really well will help you really, whether it's at the corner grocery store counting change, to figuring out the value of your podcast business, to figuring out how to do the probability math on some action that you want to take. So understanding basic mathematics cold is way more important than memorizing calculus concepts. And the problem is, and this is true of, I think, all reasoning, it's much better to know the basics from the ground up, solid foundation of understanding, a steel frame of understanding, than it is to just have a scaffolding where you're just memorizing advanced concepts. This is why there are a lot of people, I'm sure, that you listen to who are really smart. They use a lot of jargon, and you can't quite follow their reasoning. You don't know how they're putting things together, and you have this deep down suspicion they don't even really understand, right? So if you look at the most powerful thinkers, especially the ones where money or life is on the line, they have to understand the basics really, really well. Richard Feynman, the famous physicist, was able to, he had this piece in one of his lectures where he takes you from counting numbers on your hand all the way to calculus in 4 pages of text, orally, but written down as 4 pages of text. And it's a complete unbroken logical chain that takes you through geometry, trigonometry, pre-calculus, analytic geometry, graphs, everything, all the way to calculus. He understood numbers at a core level. He didn't have to memorize anything. When you're memorizing, it's an indication that you don't understand. You should be able to rederive anything on the spot. And if you can't, you don't know it.
So do you apply that to things other than mathematics? You apply that to everything?
Everything, yeah.
You don't even make attempt to memorize things. Just make attempt to understand them.
You can't help but memorize things.
Right.
But if you can't, and this is where Twitter is great for me, is I try to understand something, and then I try to write it down in such a way that I can remember it, just the basic hook that'll point towards the deeper understanding, and I'm forced to explain it to people. And that's how I know I understand something. So this is what I meant originally when we talked about reading. A good book, I'll read 1 page in a night, and then I spend the rest of the night thinking about it, or I'm chasing down references on Wikipedia or weird blog posts trying to understand it.
Can you then zoom back in to specific problems with Starship or any engineering problems you work on? Can you try to introspect your particular biological neural network, your thinking process, and describe how you think through problems, the different engineering and design problems? Is there like a systematic process? You've spoken about first principles thinking, but is there kind of process to it?
Well, like saying like physics is a law and everything else is a recommendation. Like I've met a lot of people who can break the law, but I haven't met anyone who could break physics. So first, for any kind of technology problem, you have to sort of just make sure you're not violating physics. First principles analysis, I think, is something that can be applied to really any walk of life, anything really. It's really just saying, let's boil something down to the most fundamental principles, the things that we are most confident are true at a foundational level, and that sets your axiomatic base, and then you reason up from there, and then you cross-check your conclusion against the axiomatic truths. Some basics in physics would be like, oh, you're violating conservation of energy or momentum or something like that. Then it's not going to work. So what will often happen in trying to design a product is people will start with the tools and parts and methods that they are familiar with, and then try to create a product using their existing tools and methods. The other way to think about it is actually try to imagine the Platonic ideal of the perfect product or technology, whatever it might be, and say, what is the perfect arrangement of atoms that would be the best possible product? And now let us try to figure out how to get the atoms in that shape.
I mean, it sounds it's almost like Rick and Morty absurd until you start to really think about it, and you really should think about it in this way, because everything else is kind of if you think you might fall victim to the momentum of the way things were done in the past unless you think in this way.
Well, just as a function of inertia, people will want to use the same tools and methods that they are familiar with. That's what they'll do by default.
Yeah.
And then that will lead to an outcome of things that can be made with those tools and methods, but is unlikely to be the Platonic ideal of the perfect product. So that's why it's good to think of things in both directions. So like, what can we build with the tools that we have? But also, what is the theoretical perfect product look like? And that theoretical perfect product is going to be a moving target, because as you learn more, the definition of for that perfect product will change, because you don't actually know what the perfect product is, but you can successfully approximate a more perfect product. So thinking about it like that, and then saying, okay, now what tools, methods, materials, whatever do we need to create in order to get the atoms in that shape? But people rarely think about it that way. But it's a powerful tool.